At the beginning of the story, we see a young boy named Jack. He suddenly senses something terrifying nearby. A giant. Panicked, Jack quickly ducks his head underwater to hide. Not far from him, there's a sheep, but before it can react, the giant grabs it and swallows it whole. Seeing this, Jack is completely shaken. Nearby, a soldier is also hiding, but the giant catches his scent. It rips a tree out of the ground and throws it aside. The soldier tries to run, but the giant, with its massive strides, quickly catches him. Just as the giant is about to take him away and eat him, the commander suddenly appears and drives his sword into the giant's foot. The giant roars in pain and violently throws the commander away. He crashes into a rock and is knocked unconscious. Now the giant grabs both the soldier and the commander and carries them away to eat them. Watching all this, Jack realizes something terrifying. He's made a huge mistake entering the world of giants. In reality, Jack lives in the kingdom of Cloister, where he works as a farmer with his uncle. But life is hard. They barely make enough to survive. So one day, his uncle sends him to the market to sell their horse and cart. When Jack arrives at the market, he tries to sell the horse. That's when he notices a street show telling stories about giants. Curious, Jack stops to watch, but suddenly, he sees a group of drunk men harassing a young girl. Without thinking, Jack steps in to help her. One of the men punches Jack. Jack responds calmly but confidently. "I didn't know a drunk could hit that hard, but if you try that again, it won't end well for you." Just then, the royal guard leader, Elmont, arrives with his soldiers. Everyone immediately kneels down. The girl leaves with the royal guards, and that's when Jack realizes she was the princess. Later, when Jack steps outside, his horse is still there, but his cart has been stolen. Meanwhile, at the palace, we meet Roderick, the king's chief advisor and soon-to-be husband of Princess Isabel. His friend Wick tells him that the princess ran away again today. As Roderick heads toward his library, he sees a priest rushing down, clearly terrified. When Roderick goes upstairs to check, everything is destroyed, because hidden there were King Eric's magical beans and a magical crown. Roderick is furious. The beans are gone, but the crown is still safe because he had cleverly hidden it. It becomes clear Roderick is planning something big. Now the guards begin searching for that priest. At the same time, all the palace gates are sealed shut. Outside, the priest spots Jack, who is trying to sell his horse. The priest quickly says, "I'll buy your horse for 10 coins, but I don't have the money right now." Jack replies, "I can't go home empty-handed." So the priest gives him the magical beans and says, "Take these to Father Peter at the monastery. He'll give you your money. And remember, these beans are priceless, far more valuable than 10 coins. Keep them safe and don't let them get wet." After saying this, the priest takes the horse and leaves, but the guards spot him and start chasing him. He tries to escape, but is eventually captured. Back home, Jack tells his uncle everything, but instead of being happy, his uncle gets furious. Jack says, "I'll go to the monastery tomorrow and get the money." His uncle snaps back, "That priest fooled you. Priests don't have money. You're grown up now, Jack. How can you still be this naive?" Angrily, he throws the beans to the ground. Jack quickly starts picking them up, but one of the beans slips through a crack and falls into the ground. His uncle then says, "Now I have no choice. I'll have to sell your father's belongings. That's the only way we can survive. The roof is broken, and we need to fix it no matter what." Meanwhile, Princess Isabel goes to her father, King Bramwell. The king tells her, "You can't keep sneaking out like this. You're a princess? It's dangerous." But Isabel replies, "You care more about Roderick than me. You're forcing me to marry him, even though he's much older, and I don't love him." The king sighs and says, "You're just like your mother, but you cannot leave the palace. You are going to be the Queen of England." Isabel pleads, "I just want to go out and meet my people." But the king firmly refuses. That night, Isabel secretly escapes from the palace once again. Isabel has now wandered far from the palace. In the distance, she notices a light coming from a small house. That house belongs to Jack. Jack brings Isabel inside. She thanks him, reminding him how he helped her earlier in the market. Jack asks, "What exactly are you looking for?" Isabel smiles and says, "I want an adventure." So Jack hands her a book about giants, a story his father used to read to him as a child. But at that exact moment, because of the rain, the magical bean that fell into the ground starts to react. As soon as it gets wet, it begins to grow, and within seconds, a massive beanstalk bursts out of the ground. tearing straight through the house and shooting up into the sky. Jack and Isabel are terrified. Jack gets knocked outside while Isabel is trapped inside the house. Jack tries to save her, but the beanstalk grows faster and faster, lifting the entire house high into the sky. Even though Jack is afraid of heights, he somehow manages to climb back inside, but suddenly, he slips and starts falling. Isabel grabs his hand, but her royal bracelet comes off and Jack falls all the way down. He crashes through the vines and hits the ground unconscious. Meanwhile, Isabel is carried high into the sky, into the world above. The next morning, Jack wakes up and finds himself surrounded by the king and his army. The king angrily asks, "How did my daughter's royal bracelet end up with you?" Jack quickly replies, "I didn't steal it." He explains everything. The princess came to his house, and the beanstalk caused all of this. Roderick immediately realizes Jack must have had the magical beans. Jack tells the king that his house has been carried up into the sky. So the king sends Elmont, his best knights, and Jack along with them to bring the princess back. Roderick also joins the mission. They all begin climbing the massive beanstalk using ropes. They climb day and night through wind, exhaustion, and danger. At one point, a storm hits. Some soldiers lose their grip and hang helplessly. Wick starts panicking. He's in pain, so to save himself, he cuts the rope, sending Elmont's men falling to their deaths. Elmont and Jack have no idea this happened, because they are ahead. When Elmont asks what happened, Roderick lies, the rope snapped, they fell. By the next morning, they finally reach the top of the beanstalk, a strange, dark world, the land of giants. They search the house, but Isabel isn't there. However, Elmont notices footprints. They lead deeper into the giant's world, so the group moves forward. But suddenly, Roderick, along with Wick, pulls a knife on Jack from behind. He demands the magical beans. With no choice, Jack hands them over, but secretly, he hides one bean inside his locket. As they continue, Elmont and his men find small markings left behind by Isabel to guide her way back. They follow the trail and eventually reach a cave. Inside, Jack finds his diary and notices broken branches above. He immediately realizes the princess is in danger, so they split into two teams. Elmont sends Bolt with Roderick, while he and the others move in another direction. On the way, Jack and Crow fall into a trap made by the giants. Terrified, they barely manage to escape by cutting through it. But then, they hear something coming. A giant. Seeing it with his own eyes, Jack finally realizes giants are real. He hides underwater. Elmont and Crow also try to hide, but the giant senses humans nearby. It attacks Crow, knocking him unconscious. Elmont charges in to fight, but he too is defeated. Jack stays hidden underwater, and because of that, the giant can't smell him. The giant carries Elmont and Crow away. Jack secretly follows it and reaches the city of giants. Meanwhile, Roderick betrays Bolt, pushing him off a cliff to his death. But suddenly, two giants appear. One of them grabs Wick and eats him alive. The second giant attacks Roderick, but Roderick reveals something shocking. He has King Eric's crown. Long ago, some priests created the magical beanstalk, believing it would take them to heaven. But when they reached the top, they didn't find heaven. They found a world of bloodthirsty giants. The giants killed them and used the beanstalk to invade Earth. They spread destruction everywhere, devouring humans. Then came King Eric. To stop them, he killed a giant and took out its heart. Using dark magic, the priests turned that heart into a crown that controlled all giants because it was connected to their very heartbeat. With its power, every giant bowed before the king. King Eric forced them back into their world and destroyed the beanstalk. After his death, the crown and the beans were buried with him. But now, that crown is in Roderick's hands, and his plan is clear: to use the giants and rule the entire world. Meanwhile, the giants' general Fallon has Isabel chained up. He looks at her and says, "You are a descendant of Eric, the king who forced us back into this world." His expression turns cold, and now it's finally our turn to take revenge. He asks her how she got here, but Isabel knows the truth. If she reveals the path to Earth, these giants will bring destruction to the entire world. So she says nothing. Furious, Fallon drags her out in a cage and announces to all the giants, humans have returned to die once again. And this girl is Eric's bloodline. Today, we take our revenge. Just then, a giant named Akkad arrives, dragging Elmont and Crow as prisoners. Fallon demands the way to Earth, but Crow refuses to speak. Without hesitation, Fallon grabs him and devours him alive. At that moment, Roderick arrives, and because he holds the magical crown, even General Phelan is forced to bow before him. Seeing this, Isabel and Elmont feel relieved. They think he's come to rescue them, but they have no idea he's a traitor. When Elmont asks him to free them, Roderick coldly replies, "I didn't come here to save you." Then he turns to the giants and declares, "I will set you free, and tomorrow we will rule the entire world, one kingdom at a time." The giants roar with excitement. Meanwhile, Jack sneaks into the giant's stronghold. He finally spots Isabel. A giant is dragging her away. Nearby, Elmont is being prepared like food, covered in dough, ready to be cooked. Jack quietly reaches him and hands him a dagger. Elmont begins cutting himself free. At the same time, Jack climbs up to rescue Isabel. She's relieved to see him, but the giant pulls her out and starts slicing her like food. At that exact moment, Jack drops a massive knife from above. It slams into the giant, making it scream in pain. With all his strength, Jack manages to kill it. Seeing this, Elmont and Isabel are impressed. Back on Earth, the king and his army have set up camp near the beanstalk. They're waiting, hoping for Isabel's return. Meanwhile, Jack, Isabel, and Elmont escape into the forest. Elmont mourns Crow's death, clearly heartbroken. During this time, Isabel begins to develop feelings for Jack. She says softly, "This is all my fault." But Jack reassures her, "If you hadn't left the palace, Roderick would have taken over England without anyone knowing. Because of you, his true face is finally exposed. You're not a mistake. You're the princess, and when you become queen, you'll have the power to make this world better." Hearing this, Isabel smiles. Now they move toward a waterfall, their only way back to Earth. But there's a problem. A giant is sleeping right there. Jack notices a beehive nearby and gets an idea. Working together with Elmont, they drop the beehive into the giant's helmet. Within seconds, the giant starts screaming in pain, running wildly, and accidentally falls straight off the cliff. They all feel relieved. They continue moving forward, but then Elmont stops. "I'll stay here. I need to stop Roderick and take back the crown. Otherwise, he'll destroy the entire world." Jack understands. He hands Elmont his dagger. In return, Elmont officially knights Jack as a royal soldier. Jack feels proud, and then he leaves with Isabel to return to Earth. Meanwhile, the giant that fell earlier crashes down to the ground below. Everyone is terrified, but the fall kills it. Now, the king and his people finally believe the legends are real. So the king orders, "Cut down the beanstalk." All the soldiers begin chopping it down. At the same time, Jack and Isabel are rushing down the beanstalk. During the descent, Jack finally confesses, "I love you." Isabel smiles and kisses him. It's clear they both feel the same. The next morning, Roderick arrives near the waterfall with the giants. But suddenly, Elmont, who is hiding, attacks him. They fight intensely, crashing into an ancient structure. During the fight, the magical beans fall away. Roderick has the advantage. More weapons, more power. He injures Elmont badly, leaving him hanging on the edge. But in one final move, Elmont uses Roderick's own knife against him. Roderick is struck and dies. Elmont moves toward the crown, but suddenly, General Phelan steps in. He takes the crown and places it on his own finger, and just like that, Phelan becomes the new king of the giants. Meanwhile, down on Earth, the soldiers are aggressively cutting the beanstalk. Seeing this, Jack and Isabel panic because the entire beanstalk begins to collapse. Up above, Elmont sees it falling and immediately jumps onto the beanstalk. General Phelan watches in frustration, now realizing they've lost their only path to Earth. As the beanstalk crashes down, Jack quickly uses a vine to save himself and Isabel. The massive beanstalk falls all the way down to the palace, and Elmont manages to survive by jumping into the water. Everything suddenly goes quiet, and it feels like the danger is finally over. The king believes he has lost his daughter, but just then, Jack and Isabel return. The king is overwhelmed with relief. Isabel tells him everything. Jack saved my life, and Roderick was a traitor. He stole King Eric's crown and wanted to use the giants to rule the world. The king rewards Jack with gold, but Jack stays silent. He can't tell the king how he truly feels, because by law, a commoner cannot marry a princess. And so, Jack and Isabel are forced to separate. Isabel returns to the palace, while Jack walks away. But the story isn't over yet. Up above, the giants are trapped with no way down, until Fallon notices the pouch, filled with magical beans. A dark smile appears on his face. He throws the beans into the water, and instantly, 4 massive beanstalks begin to grow. The giants grab onto them, and their weight pulls the beanstalks back down toward Earth. Jack spots his horse nearby, but then he sees something terrifying. The beanstalks rising again. He realizes instantly the giants are coming back. Without wasting a second, he rides toward the king to warn him. Soon, the giants begin attacking the kingdom. Soldiers are overwhelmed. The king and Isabel retreat safely inside the castle, but Jack is still outside. Elmont orders the bridge to be raised, but just in time, Jack makes it inside. A giant tries to hold the bridge open, but Elmont fights back and knocks it into the fire below. Everyone thinks Fallon is dead, but he's not. He secretly finds a hidden entrance into the castle and sneaks inside. Outside, the giants keep attacking, trying to force the gates open. Inside, Elmont sends Isabel away with Jack through a secret passage toward the tower, so they can warn the other kingdoms. But suddenly, Fallon crashes through the ceiling. He attacks them. Jack and Isabel run, but Fallon catches Isabel and tries to eat her. Jack jumps in to save her, but Fallon, with his 2 heads, grabs him too. Now both of them are about to be eaten. In that final moment, Jack remembers the last magical bean. He pulls it out from his locket and throws it straight into Fallon's mouth. Within seconds, the bean starts growing inside him, and suddenly, a massive beanstalk bursts out from Fallon's body, destroying him completely. The castle begins collapsing. Jack and Isabel barely escape. As they run, Fallon's severed hand falls nearby, still wearing King Eric's crown. Outside, the giants are overpowering the soldiers. The gates are about to fall. The king and his army prepare for their final stand, terrified, believing this is the end. But then, Jack arrives, holding the crown. Suddenly, every giant drops their weapons and kneels before him. Isabel and everyone else watch in shock and relief. Jack now controls the giants, and he commands them to return to their world. Peace is finally restored. The king, realizing Jack's bravery and heart, changes the law. Now, a princess can marry a commoner, and so Jack and Isabel are finally united. They get married, and later, as parents, they tell their children stories of giants. King Eric's crown becomes the royal crown of the kingdom, and the legend of the giants lives on forever. Stories like this remind us, even the smallest person can change the fate of the world. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves epic adventures. See you in the next story.